All right.
So, gents, looks like we're ripping ready to go live here. The recording has formally started, but I know we always run into the onslaught of folks that are joining us here. Maybe we give it just a second. I'll start some screen sharing. Does that work for you guys?
Works for me.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
All righty. How are we doing on some of the delay issues, Dima? Am I looking okay while we doing, or are we still hitting lag?
You got a little bit of delay, but I think we can manage.
Yeah, you're like 99% there. You're good.
You know, that's better than I am most days. So I'm going to take it. For the audience, super curious, and obviously welcome you all for joining us for our episode of Product Lab. We know there's a lot of folks that, jump on live, and part of the thing that we're doing with this tap dance is giving you a chance to BS, giving you a chance to hang with us here. I'm going to kick off a little bit of screen sharing here just so we can talk a little bit about what's going down. And today's episode, if you can't tell, we're joined by quite a few folks. Really, this is the dynamic trio that help lead the security awareness training class or class product, and obviously all the different stuff that goes with it. But there's going to be a lot of inside scoop, a lot of the different products. Obviously, Product Lab isn't just one thing. And I hear the audience saying lag is great, which is a bummer. You know what? The most fun about doing a live webinar is being able to just kick it on, kick it up a notch, flip around with a slightly different webcam, and we'll see how this goes here. So, Dima, do you mind walking through a little bit of the agenda? And what I'll do is while you're tap dancing, I'll switch things up.
Yep. I'm glad to see comments that it's better now. So we're going to start off with Kyle going over some of the hot takes for things straight out of the lab. These are features that we're shipping or just shipped or are working on. That's going to be across all three products. And then Danny, who's our creative head, he's going to talk through what it means to actually develop an episode. And this is all that crazy science of animation that I have no idea how to do. But this is why we have Danny. He runs our studio and really is going to talk through all the stuff in detail. Then Truman and I are going to chat about putting the managed SAT. And actually we'll introduce Truman and then talk through that. And then at the end, really kind of giving you all a little bit of a sneak peek into what we're doing. And this is where like the Tradecraft of the SOC comes together with a creative team and really walk through like, what do we actually do and what's coming up next. Last part, Kyle, I think is just getting a chance to answer all those hot, spicy questions from the chat, right?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, one of the things that we try to do is, like all good storytelling, making sure you get to see behind the scenes of like how the sausage is made, what are all the crazy hurdles we run into, and kind of how the creativity works. But to be very frank, this is not a one-way conversation. We really want you lighten us up during the middle of this. Drop all kinds of good, spicy information in chat. Make sure you light up Q&A with things that you're like, how does this work? Or why did you do this? So even for half of you that were just chewing me out saying, look, the lag is terrible. Hopefully it's better now. And I'm ready to roll if you're ready, Dima.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. So obviously testing chat, you notice we really want to know where you're watching from. So much that we put it twice. We were playing around with some of the nonsense earlier. Obviously, we're going to fly through some of this stuff and go straight to out of the lab since we ran into problems earlier with just my audio. Many of you know that Product Lab is all about a product. I think some of the times, even with like, as we were talking to our audience before, not everybody realizes just how many product, right? That's the engineering teams, the product management teams, the creative teams that we have. Most folks know the obvious. We build endpoint products, we build identity products, and we build employee-facing products. But to be very frank, we have another 3 engineering teams that focus on upcoming SIEM capabilities, our actual platform. Think of all the like infrastructure and foundations that act kind of like as the glue to connect all this together. And then we have our own SOC that is doing the management for you. So we're going to try to combine a lot of these product domains today. And the goal of that is to share that, like, first up, when we say we're coming straight out of the lab, we're talking about there is always something new shipping in the platform. And to be very frank, we don't have enough time to cover an episode every month on all the new stuff. For those of you who are asking, I heard you loud and clear from last month. You were like, what is the status on Microsoft Defender for Business, Defender for Endpoint? Well, I'm pumped to let you know, like we do have dedicated parts of our team working on this. So for those that don't know, Michael here, he's one of our software architects, but he is the principal behind the endpoint side of the house. And he has literally been working for you. You don't know it because it's not exposed in your UI, but we're just getting to the point where I would call it data ingestion, integration, and storage done. So for any of you who are on the EDR side of the house that are excited about this, letting you know that we actually have integrations working in a custom app for the Defender for Endpoint Progress if you're an EDR customer. Right. And what we're already able to do, it's ugly, meaning like it's just truly ingestion storage. The UIs are just starting to come along, but like we're actually performing full ingestion on multi-tenant Defender for Endpoint setups. For those of you who have not heard about this, this means if you're a Huntress EDR partner, Huntress EDR customer, and you have licensing, maybe you're buying Defender for Business or somebody conned you into buying like that E3, E5 licensing that's not cheap. We're going to be able to enhance our entire product and pull in your extra telemetry to be able to improve the EDR and manage antivirus on the Huntress side of the house. So this is pretty big. Not only that, are we, kind of improving what's already there, we're also starting to ingest the vulnerability assessment side. So this is all the capabilities Microsoft has to say like, yo, you're running an old version of Python on this box, or hey, you have something that needs to update on Mac OS, or your VMware is out of date that somebody might have installed forever ago, and then you move over to Hyper-V or something. So there is a lot of really good stuff coming out of the endpoint side of the house. So if you have an appetite for an episode of Product Lab on that in the future, can you just like light it up in chat? Let me know like, okay, this is something I want to hear and talk about. Keeping it going. Our team, we obviously had a whole episode that disrupted our Product Lab last month. Matt Kiley and team came in and talked all about the Screen Connect situations. If you're not aware, we've added the beginning of a lot of really neat Screen Connect R&D. This is us finding cases of Screen Connect in your environment that might not be the persistent version you're used to, right? It could be just like third-party support trying to help out. It could be something like, hey, this is an old IT department or old MSP used to manage this network, and those Screen Connect devices or applications are still installed. Or it could be some rogue, shady scammer or hacker installing stuff and getting ready to pwn and steal your data. So there's going to be a lot about that coming soon. And if you're not aware, although the other screenshots I showed you are coming in kind of like early alpha phase, this Screen Connect R&D is already started. We ship now. We ship wow. That's kind of an internal mantra. And so this Screen Connect R&D is already available in your dashboard today. And that wraps it up for endpoints. I will say there's a lot going on M365 side, and I, as a laggard, had to pick and choose what I could share. So I will mention that there is more to come, but I have not gone there yet. I am going to move. I've seen it loud and clear from the feedback and the questions. A lot of people asking. They've heard rumor Huntress is doing a SIEM. Yes, we internally are targeting SIEM by summer. It'll probably kick off in July-ish. And I say ish because you never know. For those not aware, like we are testing this with some of our insiders right now. The team shared last month how we're going to move into a bit of like this private preview stage kind of in the month of March. And that's already started. We've got some cases where we're already looking at just like the mass amounts of data that people want to ingest, terabytes of data, and really doing things the Huntress way. We really focus on that 80-20. What 20% of data really needs to get ingested into your SIEM, right? That's going to bring 80% of the value. And then of that 20%, what 20% should be fully monitored and managed that will truly deliver 80% of the incidents. So this is going to be huge. This is going to be one of those things that we're not looking to create just another SIEM. There's 9,000 SIEMs already out there. This is going to be truly one meant for mid-market and below, who is saying, I need to provide compliance. I need to provide hunting. It is super expensive to store stuff in Sentinel, Blue Mirror, et cetera. How do I do it in a more both better bang for the buck type of mantra? So that's kind of exciting that there's actual UIs, dashboard stuff along this line that's working. So I'm not going to derail on that, but hopefully that's exciting for team. And really where we want to get a lot of this episode. And by the way, I see some folks asking questions in chat, things about SIEM. Light it up in Q&A. We'll have time and I'll pick and choose some of these questions as we're going through it. But I really want to tee up the next part, because the number one question we got from our last Q&A polls was, can I get a better idea of what's going on SAT? I know the team is seeing a lot of new episodes, but we've had a lot of people asking the question, like, what is managed awareness training? Why are you guys competing in a market that's largely commoditized? Why would you even do this? And so I'll be really direct. I didn't spend $20 million acquiring great experts to just go and build, what KnowBe4 already has, or Breach Secure now already has. What we did is we listened, and the feedback that we heard across the board was some of the training itself is okay, it's good. But when you see those like Verizon data breach reports, or you see, for instance, the FBI top 10, and you look and you see that the adoption of security awareness training is going up, but the number of kind of like user compromised incidents are actually going up even faster. And for us, that was a clear indication that the same way that we protect endpoints and the same way we protect like the identity side, we really needed to focus on employees and really do things different there. At the same time, we listened to our partners and some of our IT customers as well. And they said, look, half of it is just managing it. Half of it is just, can I just make this mundane thing go away? Can you take over? And just like you manage my EDR, just like you hunt for my M365 and take care of all that, can you manage the whole user training process? I don't know, if EDR is endpoint detection and response, we'll call this, human detection and response. Can you help with that? So without further ado, I'm going to jump into some of the craziness that you all asked to see. And a lot of folks don't realize, like, we have a full animation studio here at the Huntress team. Danny's going to be joining me in about 4 seconds to talk a little bit about this. And what he's really going to hit on is a lot of the way that we build episodes isn't just to do creative things to be creative like that. Don't get me wrong, that's dope. A lot of things that we really emphasize on are like, what's the behavioral science behind some of this craziness, right? How do you actually get somebody to comprehend something? Well, you do it through analogies, and you do it through like the social cues and contexts that are modern. How do you get people to retain information? Well, you do that by creating habits and making sure that these things are like not just making somebody feel bad when they fall for a phishing simulation, but really give someone, positive reinforcement, just like you train a child. Believe it or not, our brains are not that much different than, kids. So we're going to go in, and Danny, are you cool? This is one of those things I could stop screen sharing and turn it over to you, but I know you're all about episode development.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'll screen share.
And
Kyle,
perfect question. Q&A: is Huntress training content proprietary? I take that to mean, do we build our stuff? And this is exactly what Danny's going to walk you through, Landon.
Yeah.
That was a great, So when we say it's proprietary, we mean it's all of ours. It's, you're going to get blown away on this episode. And we really appreciate you all who participated on the previous product labs saying, like, show us how you're actually doing it. Show us the love that goes into this. So, Danny, I'm going to stop my screen sharing. If you're cool with that, I'm going to give it to you.
Yep. All set. All right. Everyone good? You can see everything?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go through the episode development process. Like Kyle mentioned, this is a full animation studio that we have going over here. So it's a complicated deal, but the primary goal is to be complicated on the back end, but to simplify everything on the front end, so that what the viewer actually gets is just a really nice, memorable story. I think that's the most important part, is how memorable it is. So I'll go through the 3 phases of episode development, which starts with conceptualization, then we move to building all the assets and animating, and then we finally publish it, which you'll see right now. Phase 1, again, is conceptualization. So we're brought a topic. In this circumstance, we're talking about generative AI, artificial intelligence. So we're brought a topic, something that's relevant, something that's topical, something that we feel we need to teach on to keep people safe, to keep our customers safe. We're brought that topic, and then my team goes off and we develop a story about that topic. Again, something memorable, something that'll stick with the viewer. So in this case, we decided we were going to talk about a major, which fried chicken chain, which we'll get to in a second. But let me talk about all the elements of phase one. So first, we developed the concept. That means collecting data about the point that we're teaching on. We flesh out the story. We come up with a story. We flesh it out, all the details of that story. We conceptualize all the characters, what they're going to look like, what their personality is going to be. We start to design locations. So again, in this scenario, in this episode, we came up with a fried chicken chain. And again, I'll show you why we did that in a couple of frames, in a couple of slides. Then we start to build assets. What that means is we start to draw out everything that we conceptualized, all those characters, all those settings, those locations. And then we also start to build character rigs, which I will get to in a minute, but that just means setting up a hierarchy for a character so that you can animate it later on. And then I write a shot breakdown, which is basically the first step of creating a storyboard. And the storyboard is essential for animation. And then we get to that storyboarding process once that shot breakdown is written. So I'm going to show everyone an example of all of this stuff. So this is developing the character concept. So in this story, we decided we wanted to have, again, a fried chicken chain, and we needed a figurehead of that, the owner and operator of that chain. It's called Major's Fried Chicken is the name of the fried chicken joint. And so we needed a major, and you can see in the center here, actually the center and to the right, we were conceptualizing what the major would actually look like. And to the left, you'll see some other employees. So we had a lot of concepts. As you can see, we go through a lot of those concepts, and then ultimately we decide on what's best for the major's look. We also design other assets such as the location. You'll see in the center, that is the flagship store location. To the right, we have another fried chicken joint, a competitor. And to the left, you'll see just all types of assets that we create. Things like a stove, like the bucket of fried chicken. We conceptualize and draw all of these elements to the story. It's a very complicated process, but it's actually also a lot of fun once we get these ideas out there. But then we have to finalize those ideas. So you can see on the left here, we have the major. That's the finalized version of the major. And in the center, we have the finalized flagship store of this fried chicken joint, Major's Fried Chicken. And then to the right, we have the kitchen in the back, which it contains a lot of those elements that you saw on the previous slide. A lot of the elements.
Love the atomic wings there, dude. That's awesome.
I was going to say, Danny,
Yeah.
like a lot of folks don't even
poster.
realize those subtle nuances, right? Like, why are we doing MFC? Obviously, it's a play on KFC, going back to the memorization, right? We've had Jurassic Park. These are people like obviously all the atomic wing challenges, and you wouldn't believe like these nuances actually matter. Like if you want to, think of a blue collar truck driver. A lot of the pushback we got initially was, I don't think somebody that's, blue collar is going to watch an animated video. But it turns out these type of nuances and things that are very much relevant, very much memorable, and actually like people learn. The end result is different behavior. So if you're not catching on some of these like nuances Danny's dropping here, like they don't seem like big details, but they actually are key to making sure someone actually enjoys watching what they're watching.
And remembers it.
Not only remember it, but also this is that FOMO bait. We want people to notice it and to talk about it outside of some required training room. And the people who have not yet watched the training are like feeling like, oh, I'm out of the joke. Like I'm not in the cool kids club, which you don't really see with security awareness training. Otherwise, it's usually like, did you suffer through that last week or no? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and another big aspect of what we do only comes about after you've watched a good number of episodes, which is we include Easter eggs for previous episodes. So it's all part of a much larger story, this whole thing. They all live in one town in Curriculabille. They all live there. And so you will see reoccurring characters with things like the hair growth formula that we made in one episode. You'll see someone walk by with a long mane of hair that you know came from the hair growth formula from a previous episode. So we do things, so like you were saying, Dima, so people can, start to talk about this stuff outside of watching these episodes. So yeah, memorable episodes is so important, so that people can make that connection to the topic that we were teaching on.
Danny, are you projecting on some hair growth formula there? What's going on?
Not quite. It's not quite me. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I'm scared of the side effects. We don't know what the side effects are yet. That's holding off on that one. I'll keep
Danny, though, walk people through like this stuff, like not just about memorization and having a good time, because that's part of it, but like some of this, right, is you got to get like, it's got to feel believable. You got to like actually animate the actions. You've got to make like they can't feel terrible.
No. And that is the thing we wanted to avoid right from the very beginning. We wanted to avoid cheap looking animation or procedural animation, which a lot of other companies use, meaning like stuff that's templated, stuff that they can just throw in random characters, and it's already been built. We wanted to avoid that. Everything we do from scratch, we do it from scratch. Even the audio, all of our audio is composed for each episode. Each musical score is composed specifically for each episode. So yeah, we didn't want to make anything feel right out of the box. Like you said before, Kyle, it's a full animation studio over here.
All right.
So we'll move forward. So I told you I was going to talk about rigging a little bit, and this is how animation happens. This is how character animation happens. Rigging simply means forming a hierarchy in a character. So if you were talking about the leg, you would say that, your thigh or your hip controls your knee, and then your knee controls your ankle, and your ankle controls your foot. And so we have to set up all of those controls. And what you see here is a simple pin in the knee joint. But we'll move forward so that you can see this a little bit better. To the left, you'll see us setting up those pins in one of our characters. This is Liam, our character who works for the Major. And he's actually the one that sets up the hack in this episode. He doesn't do it purposefully. He does it unintentionally by using generative AI. But this character is very important for the episode. So he gets a full rig, meaning he gets a lot of movement in him, including his head, which you'll see later. So this is the process on the left of setting up those pins to actually set up that hierarchy. And Jeff, our animator, you can see is naming all of those joints as he's going. And then to the right, you'll see those joints in action. Jeff is demonstrating how those joints move. We would obviously limit movement to the forward, so it would be more natural because nobody bends their knee forward. But that is how the joint ended up working out. And then you'll see moving forward to the left, you'll see a full rig in action, and he's able to do a full series of motions, a very natural movements. All of his legs have been rigged, his arms, his chest, his head. And then you'll see on the right side here that we even set up his head movements so that he can turn his head to the left, to the right, up and down. And so this is the very, very beginning of the animation process for our characters. This is how we set them up to do all the actions that we created in the storyboard. And this is what you're seeing now, the storyboard. So storyboard is just visual storytelling. It's once we've created all the assets like the characters and the settings and everything has been reviewed and approved, We put it all together using what I create, which is the shot breakdown, which is just something that lists every single one of the shots and exactly what those shots are going to look like, as well as the camera movements, the actions of the characters, everything that's going on in a specific scene. So this
Danny,
is just one, yes.
Will you give me just 1 second? Like, I know some of you are probably wondering, hey, look, Product Lab is filled with all kinds of hackery things. Why are you going so deep into the animation style? And what I want to challenge the audience is think about this. Like, in the EDR side, I will be first and foremost to say, I wish I didn't have to build my own EDR. Building your own EDR is expensive, cumbersome, and very complex. But the reason that I have to own my own EDR is if something changes, like Screen Connect was, 2 weeks ago. Last week was more of the Avanti shenanigans. This week is some of the Forte whatever. And what happens is when something in the wild changes, I need the ability to, on the dime, protect you. I have to own every bit of my intellectual property. So if I'm just using like SentinelOne's agent or CrowdStrike agent or some other piece of software, I can't pivot fast enough. And can you all see of like from an animation standpoint, if I truly want to get ahead of trending news, trending education, especially if there's something that's urgent, can you see why I would need somebody like Danny and his team at this level of granularity? Just that same obsession and passion of like the data on the endpoint, or like what we're doing on M365, where we have to have all of this on our own. Obviously, we're not going to build our own M365. Danny's not going to build his own After Effects from Adobe, but we got to be able to use these skills to be able to have like just about anything. This allows us to pivot to any threat actor, or any sort of like employee education need that we'll have. And the reason I'm saying this is you don't know it yet, but Danny is teeing up Truman and Dima to be able to talk about like how we're actually using this on the fly to give you new episodes. It's something that like, it might not be obvious yet, but keep hanging in there with me, because this isn't just a cool sneak peek behind the scenes of like, how does that episode come into play? These are directly related to how you can actually stay and combat threat actors as it continues to evolve. So Danny, keep it going. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure we're connecting those dots.
Of course. Yeah, it's important. It's very important. This is just another example of storyboarding. And in the next few slides, you're going to see how these storyboards actually come to life. In this scene, we have Lynn, who is someone who actually received the fried chicken recipe accidentally through a chatbot that Liam used originally.
Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to add that exact context in. So it's happened so far as somebody who works for the caricature of like KFC, the Colonel, the Major, decides that he's going to develop a new recipe and feeds the secret herbs and spices into like a chat GPT from the social media company in Curriculaville,
That's
right?
Liam. He's the one that does it, Liam, the guy I'm showing right now. Yeah, he's the one that feeds the recipe in. Yeah.
Cool. Let's keep it going.
Okay, and then Lynn receives that recipe. So now the fried chicken recipe is out to the world. So now we're going to move to phase 2. What happens after we storyboard? And of course, what happens is the actual animation. So we start building the actual videos. So we create an animatic, which I'll show you an example of what that looks like. But that's created for timing purposes, so that we get all the timing right on the animation. Then we move on to actually animating. Then we edit everything. We create the audio, like I mentioned before. We create all the audio custom for each episode when it's ready to go out the door. And then we render. And then web content. There's a lot of different names for this. Internally, we just call it web content or text blocks. This is the accompanying information that goes with our videos. So not everything can fit into the videos that we create, into the story that we create for this episode. And so we always have accompanying text blocks that go along with those videos for any additional information that we may need to teach on, or maybe even information that we want to expand on through our web content. And then we have key takeaways. So like I just mentioned before, we have additional information to our videos that we put into our web content, but we always want to make sure that we reinforce the most important topics. the most important subjects of an episode, the most important teaching points of that episode. And so for that, we have key takeaways inside of our web content, but we also have downloadables, things like posters and our aware card that you could actually download and print and hang on your walls if you need to. And again, that is going to be the most crucial information that's part of the episode, the things that we really want our viewers to learn. So this is the animatic. This is all done for timing purposes. This is a direct translation of the storyboard into animated form for timing purposes only. So you'll see on the left, we have the Major gets furious with Liam for leaking the fried chicken recipe. And then on the right, you'll see Lynn bringing her daughter fried chicken. And again, these are just still frames put together for timing purposes. And then right here, we actually have the full animated version of those animatics. So on the left, you'll see the Major is going crazy. He's flipping out. And on the right, we'll see Lynn bring her daughter fried chicken. That is the animation part of this. And then simultaneously, while the animation is happening, because the animation process takes a bit to complete, we're writing and creating imagery for that web content that I was just talking about. So you'll see examples of 2 blocks that we have that goes in every episode. We have our question blocks on the right, and on the left, we have a standard text block. So this is that additional information that I was talking about, or an expansion of information that I was talking about. And then these are the key takeaways. These are the downloadables that I was also mentioning before, which you can print. We make about 3 or 4 posters for every single episode, and those 3 or 4 posters contain the key takeaways, the most important parts of information that we want the viewer to learn from an episode. But the posters get a special treatment in terms of visual design. The imagery is a little bit more higher quality, higher resolution, and they're just made to really catch your eye and be funny, be entertaining, and then also really capture the essence of the episode, what was going on in the episode in general. So on the left, we have the Major right there. In the center, we have Lynn and her daughter with the mascot of the Major's Fried Chicken. And then on the right, we have Liam, who is now working as a mascot. He's no longer in the R&D department for Major's Fried Chicken. He got demoted. And then moving on from there, we have phase 3, which is really the finalization of everything. We do final renders on our video. We upload everything onto our platform or a web app. And we make sure everything is exactly where it needs to be in the right position. And then we move on to the final review. We all take a look at that. We make sure all of our T's are crossed, all of our I's are dotted, everything's spelled correctly, grammar, everything's been rendered properly. Everything that needs to be said is being said. That is part of our final review. And then we change anything that needs to be changed or updated or fixed. And then finally, we publish. And once we publish, that means it's all ready for our customers to view and to check out.
Danny, when you and I first got together, one of the big things we talked about are how do we bring not just like the world-class experts to the threat hunting, to the cool hackery nonsense, but how do we make sure everything we do for the SMB, right? Whether there are service provider partners, whether they're internal IT departments, how do we make sure that you're bringing the best of the best? Do you want to really quick, because we're got to move on to like how we take these stories and actually manage it, how we're actually going to help. But do you want to tell a little bit about your team and like the quality of people behind this? Because I think most on the webinar will probably lose their minds.
There they are. This is my team. So we have Don, who's been with us the longest. He's one of our illustrators. He's one of our best illustrators. Everyone's great, but Don is the one that's created some of our most, if not all of our most memorable characters, including Dee Dee and Weasley, Cookie Man. So all of those characters were created by Don. He tends to be our character guy, but JoJo is pretty new to our team, our youngest member of the team, and she actually created Liam, the guy that you just saw. So JoJo has some really good skills with creating new characters as well. I'm just going to skip Jeff for a second because I really want to focus on him. He's our animator. And then we have Ray, who's been with our team for a couple of years now. And Ray really shines when it comes to environments, settings. He also draws amazing characters as well. But this team of illustrators is incredible. The way that they work together, the way that they create the things that you see in our content, it's unbelievable. It impresses me every single day. Jeff is just as new as JoJo. They came on around the exact same time, and Jeff is our animator. And Jeff is incredible at what he does. And to show how well he is, he actually has, I believe, 2 Emmys for previous work that he's done on children's content, children's cartoons. So Jeff is extremely talented, and he has brought a whole nother dimension of skill to this team and to our episodes. Our team is incredible, and as you can see, very, very small. But we all are, I'm just going to say, some of the best in the business at what we do. And that's how we're able to do what we do with such a small team.
So obviously pumped. That's one of those things that I know you're looking for internal feedback on that end. You ready to wrap it up, Danny, and kick it over to Dima? Or sorry, to Truman.
Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah, I want to
Dima,
jump in here for a sec.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So one of the other things that we do is we make sure that all of this stuff would pass muster with Chris Henderson, our head of IT, Roger, Heather from the IT department, and on this Major's Fried Chicken, literally had the conversation with Heather of would this work for Huntress? And like her big things were making sure that we don't message all generative AI is bad, because that's not the right thing. But there's some things that should go in and some that don't, and that nothing is private. And of course, we're going to be doing our own Huntress internal policies and training that separately using the custom content creator. But just pointing out, like, yeah, we drink our own champagne, eat our own dog food, and make sure that this stuff would pass muster with our own security experts.
All right,
Cool.
Truman. So obviously episodes are great, right? But what if nobody sees them? One of the number one piece of feedback I've heard forever is that concern of, hey, look, I've still got to queue it up. How do I know the right training? How do I keep it fresh? How do you keep episodes? Obviously, Danny and team are cranking out episodes. What is it? Is it a couple a quarter? Is that what you're doing right now, the current pace?
2 a quarter, yeah.
So obviously on our end, the small team, it's a place that we're actually looking to continue to invest as our own security awareness training. So like, if you're wondering what part you can do, grab some screenshots from this stuff, post to social media as we build our own awareness training, really displacing a lot of the kind of legacy incumbent technology that's out there. This is the place where we're looking to double down. We are looking to be able to grow that animation team and the illustrator team to be able to crank out more relevant episodes. And don't get me wrong, the team already has a cadre of, has a collection or a corpus of, episodes already. But just like how generative AI is emerging, there's constantly a new thing to educate on, to teach on, etc. And you now have the, behind the scenes scoop on how we're able to move so quick because we own it all, from animation, illustration, storyboarding, rigging, you name it, all the way down to composing the symphonies in the background. So Truman, now obviously managing awareness training, managing phishing, breach coaching, etc. It's a whole different thing, right? It's one thing to have the episode. Now you got to use it. You want to walk us through a little bit about your background and how you're getting it done?
Absolutely. Yes. So, I'm relatively new to Huntress, but I've been in cybersecurity for a number of years. I'm extremely excited to be on this team working on a security awareness training, specifically the managed portion. Like Danny said, there's a lot that goes into the episodes. It blew my mind seeing just how much goes into the episodes. But what I'm here to do is help with the managed portion of managed security awareness training. So I'm dedicated to making sure that what we deliver in terms of scenarios and in terms of episodes, learning content is relevant. It's what we're seeing in the wild. It's timely, and that it kind of fits together with various scenarios and episodes that you may seen or experienced recently. So again, I've been doing phishing, phone phishing, and physical pen testing for a number of years against the Fortune 500 security and defense contractors and things like that. I've developed my own machine learning kind of AI-powered spear phishing framework. So I've got the automation and development skills there as well. I presented that framework and another surveillance framework at DEF CON and a few other security conferences. And I have my offensive security certified professional and social engineering pen test professional certification. So I really love this stuff. I did it from a penetration testing standpoint for a long time. I built it into frameworks, and now I'm extremely excited to bring it more to the defensive side and wrapping that into the managed security awareness training. So what is it that we do, or what is it that I focus on in terms of managing security awareness training through curricula at Huntress? Well, one of those pieces is the awareness training aspect, just what we were just seeing Danny walk through. Making sure that the episodes that are being sent out are kind of queued up. Again, one of the things Kyle mentioned at the beginning of the call is that we want managed security awareness training to, like, the less configuration you have to do, the better. There shouldn't be, awareness training should not need to be configured. We want the IT resources to focus on the bigger things. So that's when we talk about managed security awareness training, we're thinking about a world where you sign up and that's it. You don't have to worry about onboarding and offboarding users. You don't have to worry about deciding which episodes you need to send out. And also what goes into the episodes is something that we talk not only in our internal team, product team, but also to our other researchers on the team. So I'm talking to people like Matt Kiley and John Hammond about what they're seeing in the wild. I'm looking at what I'm seeing in the wild and making sure that's being built into the episodes. And then with the simulations that we're sending out, so the actual phishing simulations or scenarios, landing pages, emails, things like that, choosing which scenarios we should send out for a particular month, choosing which scenarios we should bring in. You'll see in a future slide some of the things that I was looking at just over the past couple months of reported emails, and trying to think, what should we include next? What should we build out? Is it things like, do we need to press on attachments? Do we need to press on reply tos or QR codes or phone number callbacks? So we're looking at a number of things to kind of build out those simulations. Again, taking the overhead out of security awareness training. That should be my job. It shouldn't be your job to have to handle any of that. And then the defense coaching, which we're extremely excited about. It's been in the works for a long time. I get to come in at the 2-yard line and carry this through. I'm extremely excited about it, and we'll show a demo of that in just a minute here. And again, to touch on that, that was one of the most requested features. So again, very excited about that. So when we're talking about reported fish, or what are we going to build into our future scenarios, we're looking at fish that are reported to us in the wild. So these are through an Outlook, and I believe a Google integration, to where if you click report phishing in Outlook, for example, here, it's going to be sent to us, and we're going to be able to view that email and determine whether or not we think this is, maybe it was just spam, or maybe it's a legitimate fish. And so this gives us a lot of visibility into what attackers are doing in the wild. So one of two things happens when a phishing or an email is reported to us through the report a phish button. If this was a simulated email sent through curricula Huntress, then a kudos email is sent back to the end user that reported that email, letting them know, kind of, hey, great job. This was DD. This was a simulated phish, but stay vigilant. Or in any other case, this is going to be added to our data set and optionally to the MSP if configured that way, to, again, kind of build up our kind of bucket of reported emails that we can then analyze. And I know this product lab, we're talking about what we want to do in the future. What I'm really excited to do is take kind of a big data approach to these emails and be able to group them intelligently. So if we have, for example, a unusual login detected to Okta, but let's say the subject line's always different, or the sender is different across organizations, what I want to do is to be able to still intelligently group those, to be able to see across all of our users, getting this kind of global view at what's being sent. Because I think we're going to get a lot of great insights out of that. So I'm excited about that. Sentiment analysis, there's a lot we can do there. I'm excited to dig into that. But just being here for only a short amount of time so far, what I have been able to do, one of the first things I did is say, hey, if I'm just getting started here, what are some of the things I can quickly do before we get that tooling that I just mentioned set up? Well, we can look at subject lines. So if we sort things like, what are people reporting the most? What are the subject lines being reported to us most often as fish? And I looked at the past 2 months, January and February. So here's a few that we'll go through. And again, it's not going to be any crazy analysis here, but I will be able to kind of give you some insights that I took away just from the subject lines and also kind of perusing the emails that are mentioned here. So one of these subject lines is all caps, payroll checks. And what's interesting about this email was there is no body. There's no body in the email. And we're not going to show you these emails here. Again, we're just kind of focusing on the subjects, but I'll kind of walk you through them. No body of the email, no text, but there was an HTML attachment. And when you open the HTML attachment, which most end users, I believe the attacker is hoping most end users will just double click this. It opens in their browser, and there was a lot of obfuscated JavaScript in there, which is very clearly malware. What it's going to do, we don't know. Maybe it's going to push a download. Maybe it's going to hope that you have some type of vulnerability in your browser. But the way that you can see very clearly from the HTML and obfuscation that this is bad. And I just thought it was interesting to point out that there was no body. I thought that was kind of interesting. The next one, password expiration notification. This is kind of run of the mill. You see when you think about phishing emails, hey, your password's expired, unusual login detected. Those are the ones you see a lot. But what was interesting about this one was that the body wasn't text. It was an image. So it was just a static image posing as the body, so text in an image. And that whole image was kind of wrapped in a link. So when you click on that image, then you're routed to the landing page. And you'll see there's another one near the end that I'll get into that's a little more complex. The third subject that we saw reported a lot as fish was kind of more of what you would imagine as a combination between an email. Have you ever gotten an email that you didn't sign up for? You didn't sign up for a mailing list, but now you're getting a kind of a really sales heavy related email. It was a combination of that mixed with, if you can imagine, you've had a pop-up on your browser that says something like, oh, win this Apple gift card. It was like a combination of those two, which I thought was interesting, mixed with kind of something about shipping in the subject line with your Apple package. So it was a very strange mix of techniques being used here. Tried to click through it and the domain no longer resolved. But again, forward thinking here, what I like to do is to be able to, in an automated and safe fashion, take screenshots of these landing pages, not only at the time that the fish is reported, but also maybe a few hours later, so that if there's kind of delayed phishing going on, which I'll cover, I think in the Tradecraft Tuesday coming up in June, in a few months here, a couple months here, to go over what delayed phishing is. But it's basically the idea that, if the landing pages are scanned at the time that the email lands in the inbox, that doesn't necessarily mean as long as the landing page looks good, everything's okay, because attackers can do lots of different things based on timing and also IP address or who's clicking on the landing page. So that was just kind of forward thinking there. But getting into the final subject here, authenticator registration report. This was a complex email. So what happened here is this email is being sent. Let's just say it's being sent to a hospitality industry end user. Okay. What I found interesting is the email was being sent from a legitimate doctor's office. So that was already weird, because this is a security focused email saying something along the lines of, you need to reset your password. So it was as if it was going to be coming from Microsoft or the internal security department for this, again, in this situation, hospitality industry end user, but it was coming from what was very clearly a hijacked domain. There's no reason why this medical office should be sending something about you resetting your password to a hospitality industry end user. So that was odd. The next part, yeah, go ahead.
Truman, I mean, I definitely don't want to hijack, because you're on a roll, especially of where this is going. But I can't help but think, for the audience member, when I made the comment earlier of this domain is no longer just watch this educational video and be done, right? It evolved and took a step forward into the phishing simulation stuff. But even if you notice the way that you create the content, the way that you create the phishing simulation, but do you hear the stuff that Truman is dropping? This reminds me a lot of do you remember when antivirus became just a commoditized, environment. There was like 80 antiviruses. And thankfully, we finally had the big market breakthrough that eventually it became next gen AV. And now generally we call it EDR, right? It's a lot more comprehensive, and antivirus is a piece of it. I hope you all as audience members are thinking through this. Like, we are on the cliff of what I think is a fundamental change in a market category, where we're moving from cute awareness training to what is everything I can do to help the humans, help the employees prevent, detect, and respond to these type of incidents. And obviously us thinking through you all, whether again, internal or external IT, how in the hell can we take all the mundane off your lap and do as much as we can? So I know you're diving in, Truman, on some of these things of where you're seeing hijacked domains, and obviously some of the delayed, or kind of like what we do with environmental keying, when you make malware run on an endpoint but only run on one certain company's endpoint. I think what you're hitting is there's certain spam and certain phishing that only runs and targets certain users, certain browsers, certain IPs, and certain companies. If you can't tell it, Truman is bringing all of his knowledge from the outside to level up and say, all right, if hackers are going to go and change the way that they're targeting end users, it's time for us as an industry to level it up to a whole different notch. So I hope you're picking up what he's putting down.
Yep, that's exactly right, Kyle. Yeah, the main takeaway for me here, just to kind of, just to wrap up this slide here, is that seeing these types of subject lines, poking through these emails, tells me a few things. One, hey, we should be testing out maybe HTML attachments. It's not always going to be an exe as an attachment that you have to look out for. It's sometimes going to be an HTML or a more benign seeming attachment. Even a PDF is pointing to some type
an ISO, an LNK, or anything else that could allow you to click a link maybe embedded inside.
That's exactly right. And then we see two examples here with the kind of image instead of body text. We see an image because maybe the idea is that it's going to take a while for some of these email gateways to bring computer vision up to parity with what they're currently doing to scan the text of these emails. So that might be a consideration for us to test out some emails with the images body as well. And so those were the main takeaways. And then also good to keep in mind that there's still going to be those kind of kind of easy to spot, very clear fish that come through as well.
So gents, we don't have a ton of time. I know, Truman, some of this stuff on where we're going to go, right? Some of the breach coaching, etc. we've talked a little bit about. Is there anything you want to do to wrap this up? Because obviously we're going to show where this combination of Danny's kick-ass content and your essential management are going to combine. You want to show a little bit of this, of like how this comes into like maybe the defense coaching? And I'm just looking, we got about 10 minutes left. So,
yes. So I will kind of quickly run through a demo of the defense coaching here. So this is going to assume that a user has just clicked on a curricula phishing link. So they just clicked on a link. They weren't supposed to click on it. It was coming from curricula. Okay. So this is dynamic defense coaching. It was one of the most requested features was, hey, tell the end user what they should have seen about this email to detect that it was phishing. So we're going to get it kind of again, I'm going to kind of rush through this here. This is a work in progress, but kind of a splash screen letting them know they were almost phished, kind of an introduction, who I am and why I'm qualified to tell them what they can do to be more secure. We're going to collect some feedback from them to kind of personalize the coaching. I'm going to just choose one here, but you can choose multiple if you'd like to. I was in a hurry is why I clicked and provided my credentials. Now it's going to give them a little bit of defense coaching in regards to the specific point or points that they just chose. Hey, we know you're in a hurry, but just slow down. Attackers are hoping that you kind of rush things through and don't think, but just slow down to evaluate the validity of the emails. And then we're going to test their knowledge to make sure they were paying attention on that last point or those last points. We want you to carefully evaluate each message. Oops. Okay, very cool. That was my first time going through that one, so I'm happy to see this working. Sweet.
It works.
I want you to carefully evaluate each message.
Okay, sorry, trying to rush through here. Yes, we are testing this as we go, so it seems like I need to take some more training. Okay, so this is the really cool part. This is the part I'm super excited about. Okay, so this is where in the email, we're able to now show the user what they should have detected every step of the way. And again, this is a work in progress here. I think this is supposed to be an @ sign here, but this is pre-beta. You were seeing this before we even roll it out in beta. So start with the sender. You can see here, this is not coming from AmericanExpress.com. So we highlight that, point it out to the user. We see that there's a sense of urgency in the email. So again, this is the part of the email that likely got the user to think, okay, I really need to take care of this quickly. So we tell them, slow down, stay sharp. And then we talk about the irrelevance or relevance of the email. In this case, irrelevance of the email. This is if you think about the 80-20 rule, most phishing, it just comes down to being able to spot it this doesn't even make sense. I don't use an American Express card at work. So that's an example of how you could very quickly spot that this is a phish. And then to the branding, clearly this doesn't kind of meet the test of an American Express or enterprise level email in regards to design. So we point that out as well. And then at the end, we capture a little bit more feedback. So how prepared do you feel to identify future phishing attacks? Now I feel very prepared. And so we collect that. We may seek more feedback in the future depending on what they choose there. And then we just let them know thank you. And that's the end of the kind of pre-beta of the training.
So as a partner or customer, can you imagine this? Like, obviously we went through, and Truman, somebody who has great expertise, walking them through and not making them feel bad for a second for failing, but truly walking them through. Let me coach you through what went right, what went wrong. But imagine the opportunities that Dima, as the principal PM, he can invite all kinds of people on here to do guest phishing, right? Some of the places we're exploring are obviously our own team. We've got tons of experts, but bringing in all kinds of different stuff. Hey, this is real time. This is being abused. How do we actually be able to bring some of this exciting new kind of perspective that's representing what hackers are doing real world that you don't got to keep track of? You don't got to watch Twitter every day or X every day or some threat intel feed to wonder, how do I educate my end users? We see the incidents all the time. Sometimes we see the malware that actually ends up on the endpoints or the, stolen credentials that happen as a result. And we're taking all of that together to feed into the system that delivers your employees, right? Whether they're users, right? Employees or just folks that are, maybe contracting to the company that are required to go through awareness training, and taking all of that to elevate them to kind of make them your first line of defense. Dima, what you got going here?
Yeah. So, the last part of this is what our partners actually see, which is, and this is a mock-up, you get the data back. We're not hogging it. And you can see what your learners are saying. And this is the thing that I would focus in on. If I had a bunch of people who responded with not prepared at all on that last question, that's a big heads up for the MSP or for the IT admin to say, let me have a conversation with them and see if more coaching one-on-one is the right move here.
Love it. So you want to end us? Dima, we got 5 minutes, which, the strong call to action here for anybody not paying attention is any one of you can participate. These trials, if you're only using like M365 or EDR, you should jump on board, right? This is just some of the stuff that you can play. Obviously, our call to action too for some of the diehards that are already using security awareness training, right? Feedback.huntress.com. That's where we can get some of this feedback. But even the little things of like, if something on here blew you away, really helped open your eyes, sharing that on social is the closest thing to a call to action you're going to get on us. So Dima, let's land it here with your last couple minutes. Tell us how we combine the tradecraft and storytelling, and let's end it.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the big things that Kyle and I have been talking about is wanting to basically create an easy button. When you have a report from the SOC, not only do you want to clean up the malware, but say, queue up a security awareness training that's relevant for this specific attack. So one of the ways that we do this, we've had over 500 reports of QuickBooks plugins running through malvertising that were ending up on the EDR side. This is done by a little pop-up that just says, hey, we need to clean up your computer. Call this phone number, right? Doesn't trigger antivirus. It's just that one action. But then that leads to a scam center telling people to install remote viewer. We're basically building out all of these capabilities to be able to tie an endpoint report to the training. Business email compromise too. Same thing with tactics that were coming in from the SOC for the M365 product. But then was it 3 months ago, Kyle, that you talked about the passwords.txt being stored on the desktop?
Yeah.
I forget when.
Yeah, I think that was probably September or October. Our EDR product was discovering all kinds of passwords. People were accessing just blamed password files. So go ahead, Dima.
Yeah. So 9,000 plus results there. The further actions once you've expanded the file names even more. So yeah, Danny and I are now working on tying this together and building a new episode on password hygiene and what happens when you store a password file on your desktop. We've got, what's his name, Danny? Robbie the Rocket?
Ricky the Rocket, ex-basketball player, superstar basketball player.
So keep an eye out for Ricky the Rocket. He's going to be the one who stores his passwords on his desktop. And the All-Seeing 3 from the Suspicious Events episode are making a comeback, where they're going to use that to take all of the Rocket's sports memorabilia and auction them off for pennies.
That's
Coming
correct.
soon. And that's all I've got, Kyle.
Oh, well, hopefully the team had a blast. Obviously, a lot of information packed, a lot of cool behind the scenes footage here. And obviously, we just appreciate you joining us with another episode of Product Lab, right? This is where you get your behind the scenes sneak peek on what's going, obviously helping inform what's going on. And this is a monthly recurring webinar. So obviously excited to see you two or you three gents on a future episode. Truman, good luck on your episode of Tradecraft Tuesday when you get into the nitty gritty. And for our audience members, we look forward to having you in the next episode. So without further ado, I'm good to go.